Hello and welcome to VCU Bioinformatics. We are so excited to know that you're joining our major, and for a lot of you joining VCU for the first time, either as a first-year incoming student or an incoming transfer student joining us from another institution. So I know this past year has been a lot to manage, both in terms of our expectations and kind of readjusting what those might be and what we're expecting from our education. I hope that kind of going into the fall 2021 semester that we do get to see some of those expectations and excitements come to life. I know I'm certainly looking forward to that. And I, truly miss being on campus with all the students, so I am looking forward to that, and I do hope we get the chance to meet come fall semester. So this presentation is really to give you just a brief overview of our major and some of the things that you'll need to look at when you are getting ready to come to VCU this summer or once you're here in the fall. The biggest takeaway that I want you to have at the end of this presentation is that bioinformatics is super cool and it is really fun, and we're an awesome community here at VCU, and it can also be a lot to manage and it can be a little bit confusing. So always make sure you're asking questions if you are confused about anything really about your academic journey here at VCU, and that you're also taking a lot of ownership in your education and making sure that you are, looking out for different deadlines, keeping up with your progress as a teammate with your academic advisor. So anyway, without further ado, I want to talk a little bit about important dates and websites that might be helpful. So I'll first speak to first-year students and then also mention transfers as well. For incoming first-year students, you'll see here a list of important dates and websites. I say websites because this QR code here on the right is actually a link to the first-year student checklist, which has a few different websites that are going to be helpful, whether it's housing that you're needing to look for, getting your VCU ID set up, registering for classes, lots of different things, financial aid. So that link is actually going to take you to a multitude of websites and also a checklist for making sure that you're staying on top of what you need to do before the fall semester begins. The important dates that are shown here on the slide really run from February all the way through to August, and cover a variety of different things that you need to be aware of. So right off the bat, FAFSA applications electronically were due back in February. You can still do those in a paper format now, and I'm happy to help with those. Campus housing moves on into April. Over the summer, as of right now, you're attending orientation, and then everything else after that really kind of speeds up in the month of August. August 1st is a big date for all of you. You're going to be assigned your first year advisor on that date, and then you can start making academic advising appointments through Navigate. That process is really seamless, and I think once you kind of get a chance to open up the Navigate platform, you'll see kind of how that works. Also on August 1st, you're going to have kind of deadline for in-state tuition, reevaluation. If you have a question about that, you can always contact your freshman application processor. You also want to have your final transcripts on file. So are you transferring credits from high school, maybe through AP or IB program? Maybe if you took some classes at a community college, make sure we have those here on record. And then as we move into the last weeks of April, we're going to start Weeks of Welcome, which is really our way of saying welcome to VCU and getting you involved in all the things we have going on campus. And then also August 24th, our first day of class. So really similarly for transfer students, I've got the QR code here that takes you to your own checklist and also a variety of websites to kind of keep you going through the same steps. Those questions you have about housing, those questions you have about financial aid. Ideally, your advisor would be able to help you with all of those things. And we have so many students here at VCU that it really does make sense for us to have individualized offices that kind of handle those different categories of questions. So even if you need to start with your advisor when you ask questions, I may kind of direct you to other offices, but I'm always happy to help be that first place where you ask a question. So similarly to our incoming first years, February 1st FAFSA applications, the difference, for transfer students is that over the June months is when you're kind of responding to some of those offers of admission. You do go through orientation now at a similar time. And then also August 1st, similar deadlines for final transcripts. Even if you're still picking up some credits over this summer, make sure we get those final transcripts over to VCU. Mid-August, we're looking at kind of deadlines for payment for tuition and fees. That will always change a little bit based on the classes that you're adding and dropping. And then similarly, weeks of welcome and first day of class at the end of August. One thing you'll notice here that's different between transfer important dates and first year is that you actually have the opportunity to meet with your academic advisor now. Transfer students, your academic advisor is actually me, and I will introduce myself as well. But first year students, you won't begin working with me until your second year here at VCU. And the purpose behind that is just so that you have an assigned first year advisor to help with some of those transition pieces and getting you connected to different offices on campus, where once you move into your second year and you're a little bit more connected to your major, you and I will start working together to kind of make sure that your graduation plan is set and that you feel like you're getting as many opportunities as you're looking for while you're at VCU. So something important to mention, you may have heard a little bit about math placement and chemistry placement. I wanted to take some time to talk about this because as a hard STEM major, bioinformatics utilizes a lot of math and a lot of chemistry. So taking those placement tests as soon as you can is really helpful in terms of figuring out what classes make the most sense for you to take. Ideally, we want to make sure that you're, testing into a math that's appropriate for where you are in your development, either not too far behind, not too far ahead, because for some of our different tracks within the major, you will be moving on to, advanced math beyond calculus and maybe some, upper level challenging statistics or upper level challenging math. And for chemistry, if you are a biological or genomic concentration, you're moving all the way up through biochem. So you'll really be moving through 4 or 5 levels of chemistry, depending on where you place. So make sure that you get that taken care of as soon as you can. It is free for all students. The only time that costs come in is if you delay taking those tests. There is kind of a deadline to retake the test if you don't love your first score. The link at the bottom of this slide is where you can get more info about it, where you can log in and kind of get started on that process. The other thing I want to talk about, Gen Eds. So this is something you'll probably hear a lot as you transition into VCU. This is mostly a message for our first year students who need to complete the full list of VCU Gen Eds, general education requirements. In all, there are 30 credits of Gen Eds that are typically taken by every first year student, and the only exception to that is when a student has UNIV 111 that's been waived as a transfer credit. So really, the main thing to remember here is that there are 3 different categories: foundations, breadth of knowledge, areas of inquiry, and you'll see that those 2, breadth of knowledge and areas of inquiry, actually have 2 kind of monikers that you'll hear people talk about, which is BOK and AOL. All students are required to complete the Gen Ed curriculum. It's 30 credits divided into 3 sections. If you're a transfer student who earned an associate's degree at your previous institution, your Gen Eds are going to be waived. So this isn't something that you'll necessarily have to work through. Students that are, majoring in bioinformatics may have some additional kind of ancillary requirements that you have to take, like a physics class, but those are not necessarily considered Gen Eds. Math and science foundation skills that are going to provide you with skills and knowledge that are really going to help you excel in the program and also excel in any research or internship opportunities that you might want to do while you're here. There are some overlap between Gen Eds and ancillary courses, but the classes that you choose to take within these 3 categories will apply to both, and so you have a little bit of flexibility there. I have kind of highlighted breadth of knowledge in a red box because that's typically where advisors recommend that you start filling out those credits. You can also notice that under each of the 3 areas, you can see where kind of the focus is within those. So, foundations, your UNIV sequence, quantitative foundations, breadth of knowledge, humanities and fine arts, the natural sciences, social behavioral sciences, and then areas of inquiry really moving into that creativity, innovation, the human experience, global perspectives, and then logical reasoning. So these will be things that will support your education even as you move through your gen eds into your major course requirements, that they're really supported on these foundational courses. So as I mentioned, friendly faces, I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Leanne Curry, and some of our students will call me Miss Curry. Some of our students call me Miss Leanne. I am fine with all of the above. You can call me Leanne, Miss Curry, Miss Leanne. I'm totally fine with all of those. My main goal is to really work with you to make sure that you're on track to graduate, you're feeling fulfilled by your major, and that you get opportunities within the major that you're really looking for that speak to kind of your career goals. My other role is to kind of push you in the direction of really being an autonomous student who takes ownership in their education and feels that, they're really bought into the process. And in some ways, that can be really challenging for students. A quick example of that is for a lot of first-time college students and even first-time transfer students coming from a 2-year institution maybe into VCU this semester, it can be really intimidating to try and have an honest conversation with a professor around maybe a grade that you don't agree with, or a confusion you have about a certain topic. Because this may be the first time within your academic career that you're working with someone who has maybe a PhD, has you address them as doctor someone, professor someone. So there is kind of that power differential there. So my goal then would be to find a way that, how can we set you up for success to have that conversation with a professor on your own? I'm always here to run through those scenarios, but I also want to make sure that you're growing during your time at VCU into like a really, as I said, autonomous, independent student and academic. And then specifically within the bioinformatics major, a researcher and a scientist. So be prepared for that, and just know that the goal in the end of that is to really help you grow from when you start at VCU to when you leave, because my goal really is for you to be happy, successful students. First year students, as I mentioned, your first year advisor will not be me, but you're going to get that person assigned to you on August 1st, and you'll be able to then make appointments with them through Navigate, which you may have heard about already. It's kind of our student appointment portal. At that point, your advisor is also going to reach out to you. So if you're distracted at the beginning of August, you've got a lot going on, just know your advisor will also be reaching out to you to welcome you to VCU. Between now and August 1st, if you have questions about that first year experience or advising or anything like that, email advising@vcu.edu. We have lots of people monitoring that email, so it should be something that has mostly a quick turnaround. For transfer students, you guys will be working with me. So freshmen, fear not, we will begin working together when you start your second year at VCU, and actually it's a little bit closer to the end of your first year. So come June, at the end of your freshman year, you guys will be moved over to my caseload and will officially be my advisees, and I will officially be your advisor, and you'll be able to make appointments with me and Navigate. And I like to mention, there's no limit on the number of appointments that you can make. There's, some things that we would prefer to talk about versus others where I may refer out to maybe student health or counseling services or even like the Wellness Resource Center. But for the most part, we can talk about anything from the academic to the personal to the career, lots of things that you could think of that might be impacting your academics. So yes, transfer students, I am your academic advisor for the bioinformatics major. My whole role here is to kind of, help you set realistic goals for your education. For a lot of students when they start at VCU, that kind of helps. They think about GPA. They think about, being a cum laude graduate, an honor graduate, or something like that. For a lot of our students in the bioinformatics department, realistic educational goals might look a little bit more like, I really want to get published this year, or, I really would like to find a way to get credit for this independent study that I'm working on. So it's going to look a little bit different for every student, as well as an ideal curriculum. Both first-year students and transfers, you're going to be bringing different classes with you into VCU. And so you and I will work together to figure out, what does your ideal curriculum look like? Are you just a rock star at computer science and you want to get those classes out of the way early? Or, is really chemistry kind of your groove and you want to start moving through chemistry as soon as you can? Do you want your last semester here to be independent study and open electives and things like that? There's lots of different choices that you can make when it comes to your curriculum and your academic progress, and that's just kind of a collaborative process that we have. And then lastly, identifying university programs and resources. This is a huge part of my job, and probably I would say 70% of why I meet with students. There are lots of things that impact our academic life, and that could be something like, losing a part-time job, where now we're really, really stressed about money. We're really, really stressed about paying our rent. And, through those stressors, we're now suffering in our academics. So your academics may be the reason that we have a meeting, have an academic advising appointment, but the root problem may actually be some of these other things that are going on. And so that would be a conversation between you and I about what offices could really help and what resources does VCU have for you as a student that can kind of get you back on track. Our students check in with me every semester before course registration. That's a really important one. Every semester we'll have a few students who wait until after their registration date has opened. And I really don't recommend that, because it really does kind of put you in a pinch of, really needing to get into certain classes, and maybe they're full, maybe they're not offered at a time that really works for you. So trying to plan out your courses early and then registering the day that registration opens is really important. And transfer students, you can make appointments with me and navigate now. So I included the link there. You should be able to click on that, open up your Navigate profile, and you'll likely see me as your assigned academic advisor. You'll see Joy Jones probably as your assigned financial counselor. So those questions about financial aid and loans and things like that. And then I believe you'll also have a study abroad advisor that may be different depending on last name, I think is how they break that up. So again, as I mentioned, there are several things that we can talk about when it comes to academic advising, and I just kind of put this list in here to illustrate that it's not just picking out your classes. We can talk about your goals. We can talk about grad school. We can talk about, your major map. What else should I be doing here besides class? What clubs are there for me to join? Summer school, tutoring, undergraduate research. Not everybody goes in expecting to need this, but maybe you need to withdraw from a class, or maybe you need to submit an ARAC appeal, which, is essentially an appeal of a policy that maybe you might be in a violation of. There's lots of things here that I can help with and that we can talk about. Most often what I tell students is, if you have a question, make an appointment. And if I'm not the right person to answer that, then it'll really be something that you and I can decide together and find the right office for you to talk to. So what is bioinformatics, really? One thing that we see a lot of new students to VCU kind of sometimes can get confused about is that we have a lot of colleges at VCU. You may have heard the College of Engineering, or the College of Humanities and Sciences, School of the Arts, School of Business. So where's bioinformatics and all of that? We are located within VCU Life Sciences, which you'll see here on the left side of the slide. And within VCU Life Sciences, within our unit here at VCU, we've got 3 centers of research. The VCU Rice River Center, the Center for Environmental Studies, and then us there in the middle, the Center for the Study of Biological Complexity. Both within Environmental Studies and our center, we have 2 majors, so the Bachelor of Science in Bioinformatics, and in Environmental Studies, the Bachelor of Science of Environmental Studies. We consider them our sister program, and they've got a lot of interesting classes that some of our students will take from time to time as electives. But I did include a little, about 154 students to kind of illustrate for you guys that we are a small major. And with that comes positives and negatives. For a lot of people, it's a positive because, hey, you've got one advisor, it's me, and most often when you need to meet with me, you can get an appointment within a day or two. You really get to know your faculty, so that way if you have something that, hey, they're doing a really cool research project and you want to work on it, there's a fairly small pool of candidates that you're competing with, which is really neat. The downsides of that is that, a lot of our classes are taught in other departments because our faculty is still fairly small and they can only, teach so many classes. So not only will you take classes within the bioinformatics department, but you may also take them in the computer science department or in the biology department or the chemistry department. So just something to keep in mind, as you're moving through our program is that there's always going to be pros and cons no matter what major you choose. I tend to see the pros of our small but mighty major, but if you ever have concerns about it, please let me know, and I would be happy to talk through those as well. A lot of times for students that declare bioinformatics when they come to VCU, they may already be pretty familiar with what it is, but just in case, you selected it because it sounded cool and you're still learning what it is interdisciplinary at its core. So kind of what I was referencing before, it's computer science, it's biology, it's chemistry, it's math, and also kind of, integrating that into experiential hands-on research. It's really about how do we take this kind of set of human or biological data and do something with it? How do we interpret that? So our students typically really enjoy biology as well as computer science and kind of utilizing computers to find answers or create a new tool. We also have a lot of students who are interested in pre-med or some other kind of, health grad program because you do get a really good mix of biology and then some kind of, another layer of looking at biological data. I included a little breakdown of kind of what our students do for the most part when they leave us at the end of 4 years. About 50% decide to go into grad school in various different fields of study, which could be molecular genetics, genetic counseling, data science, data analytics, lots of different programs like that, bioinformatics, computer science. About 25% go on to med school, and I would maybe even expand that a little bit more to, pre-professional health programs, so vet school, dental school, med school, all those things. And then about 25% go straight into the workforce, and that could be working at government agencies, could be working at nonprofits or startups, could be working at universities doing research in a lab, or even local Richmond labs like PPD. We typically see lots of diversity in what our students are doing after college. And then, just a little note kind of about some of the things you'll learn in the program. You'll learn how to read scientific papers. You'll learn how to do bioinformatics programming and algorithms and research techniques. And really, your track should kind of be chosen based on the strengths that you have and the interests that you think about when you think about a career. As I mentioned, interdisciplinary. There's no hiding it. So one thing that students kind of take away from that is, oh my gosh, I've got to be good at so many things. I want to protect my GPA. I want to keep it a higher GPA. And how do I be really good at biology and chemistry and math and computer science and physics? And really, the answer to that is careful planning, working with your professors and your advisors, and really just being curious, asking the right questions, asking questions at all, and kind of going into it with an open mind of how is this going to improve or change my view of bioinformatics work, and finding a way to really make it relevant to what you want to do. I wanted to take a slide and talk about our faculty and staff. Even as I talk about this one, it's actually out of date because we hired a new faculty member this summer. I'm going to need another row eventually. This QR code will take you to our website and talk a little, and it will give you a little more information about each of our faculty members, the labs that they have, and maybe what opportunities exist for you to work with them in their labs. You'll have classes with some of these professors, which is pretty neat, and somewhat rare in some undergraduate departments. Some of these professors teach our master's level students, but for the most part, between your freshman year and your senior year, or for transfer students, kind of coming in at the beginning of your junior year and finishing out with us in your senior year, you should have lots of opportunity to get to know these people. As I mentioned, I tend to see our program from a really positive lens, and one of those positive things is you get to know these people. And if you ever need personal statements or letters of reference, if you ever need, an opportunity to work in a research lab or someone to look at your research proposal, these are the people that you're going to want to ask. So if you're setting any goals for yourself in your first semester at VCU, I would say set a goal to meet one of these people. You don't have to be best friends or buddy-buddy, but just meet one of them and ask them about their journey in bioinformatics and what that's looked like. Because for every one of these faculty members, that journey has been different. So as I mentioned, we've got different concentrations within the major. As of right now, if you're a declared bioinformatics student, you've likely already chosen biological genomic, computational, or quantitative statistical. Based on the names, you probably have an idea of where the strengths really lie within each of these tracks or concentrations. Kind of use those interchangeably. Whether that's computational studies, really interested in programming skills, understanding algorithms, or biological, where you're really interested in molecular biology, biochem, or quantitative statistical, where you're really into modeling and analysis. Most of the students that we work with in these tracks tend to kind of be eligible for other minors as well. And I've noted that in each of these tracks. So we can always talk about that. This QR code takes you actually to the bulletin, the VCU bulletin for each of these, where you can do a little more in-depth searching in like what classes are differ between each concentration. I've included an example of a first-year freshman schedule. I will say for a lot of our students, this isn't exactly accurate because for the most part, you're usually coming in with, one, maybe two classes waived, or maybe placing out of certain levels of chemistry or something like that. But this is typically where we like to see students start. If they're coming in with no credits, nothing waived, starting out, 15 credits each semester, jumping right into biology, jumping right into phage discovery 1, which is your first, venture into wet lab research and learning about bacteriophage work. Jumping into entry general chemistry, your focused inquiry, which satisfies a gen ed requirement, and then another gen ed course of your choice. As I will talk about a little bit later, breadth of knowledge is one that we emphasize, so that would be a good option there. Carrying it into spring, and these are actually backwards, so spring 2022, not 2021, continuing on in that bio, taking the next level of bioinformatics, introduction to scientific computing, looking at your next round of phage, moving through chemistry, continuing on in focused inquiry, and then potentially another gen ed course here. Again, 15 credits is kind of that ideal. And the reason we get to that is after 4 years at VCU, we want you to have 120 credits to graduate, 120. And so if we break that out over the 4 years that you're here at VCU and those kind of 8 semesters, fall and spring, that works out to about 15 credits each semester to keep you on track. That is always going to be an average for students. You're going to have maybe some semesters where you're above 15, some semesters where you're under 15. You may be coming in with some credits so we can, make it lower for you in some semesters. This is going to be our general guidance. And of course, individual students will have different plans. For transfer students, this is a little bit more nuanced because you're coming in with waived gen ed requirements a lot of the time. You might be able to waive some of the major requirements depending on what you took at community college or at another institution. And so that's going to be a little bit more of an individual conversation about what your schedule is going to look like. You can always look in the bulletin or the transfer major map to kind of see where you're falling on what's recommended. But usually it's most beneficial if we can have a conversation about it too. As I mentioned, major maps are a really cool thing. I've included the QR code here in case you want to go take a look. the whole purpose behind the major map is to really give you some context on what should I be doing my first year at VCU? What should I be doing my second year at VCU? And so on and so on. You know, the things that we really focus on as your advisors: getting you real experience, getting connected with your community, building cultural competence, maximizing your degree planning so you get the most out of your time here, and then also preparing for life after college too. You know, a lot of students get right up to graduation and then it's all of a sudden they realize that they're about to enter the world of work. And so we want to make sure that we're preparing you appropriately for that. So explore your major map. Again, these are not absolutes that you have to stick to. There are suggestions for what you might be interested in. Same thing for our transfer students. You know, there's a little bit of different advice here depending on what year you're joining us at VCU. But a lot of the things I'll kind of talk to you at the end of the presentation, the ways that you can get involved with your community, build cultural competence, and get real experience, maybe as well as kind of preparing for life after college, are going to be offered right here within your major. So, you know, just really quick overview, our program goals and learning objectives. These are the things that we want you to accomplish or to learn by the time you leave us at the end of 4 years. And for the most part, we see that students are able to kind of meet these outcomes and goals. It's not always through class. Sometimes it is through a research opportunity, or it is through an independent study, or something that they do with our student organization. So as time goes on, we might, you know, you and I together look at these goals and outcomes and see, where do you feel like you're really killing it, and where do you feel like maybe you need a little bit more support, so that by the time you end your time at VCU, you feel really good about where you are. Grad requirements, just to mention these, you know, this is something that every student that's getting a Bachelor of Science at VCU has to meet. 120 credits to graduate, 45 of those need to be upper level, minimum cumulative GPA of a 2.0, both for VCU and for your major. And then a certain percentage of the classes that you're taking need to be taken at VCU versus kind of somewhere else. So this is something we usually review every semester when I meet with a student of, where are you in terms of this? You know, how many upper level credits do you have? How many total credits do you have? And if we, you know, see one thing getting ahead or one thing getting behind, we kind of adjust going forward. So I mentioned about 50% of our students go on to grad school. That is not to say that you can't get work with a Bachelor of Science in Bioinformatics, but for the most part, a lot of our students that start working in bioinformatics, they want to learn more. They really do want to kind of do hands-on research. They want to work for a university. They want to work for a lab. And so for some of those positions, you do need to pursue a master's degree. And luckily, we have probably the best graduate advisor ever here in our department, which is Dr. Allison Johnson. For our first-year students, you will have her for your phage discovery class, both 1 and 2. And she's fantastic. She's a wonderful resource to talk about master's degrees, PhDs, the road to working in bioinformatics, and also what's it like to be a professor. So, you know, if you're thinking about that, don't hesitate to reach out to Dr. Johnson and learn a little bit more about what she knows. You know, I've included all the different options that we have here at VCU for getting a master's degree, getting a PhD, and a lot of our students choose to pursue graduate education at other institutions, just depending on what they're interested in. Both myself and Dr. Johnson here can help you talk about those plans and what's required of you, what classes might make sense for you to take, and we're happy to talk about that. So as I mentioned, building community, you know, building your cultural competency, preparing for life after college, getting hands-on experience. These are a few ways that you can do that. The Society of Bioinformatics at VCU is our student org within the major. It's completely student-run, not by me, not by our faculty. All the students run it. You know, we don't have a ton of students that still use Facebook, but that group is still active if that's something that you want to connect to. What this group typically likes to do are different kind of activities to build those bioinformatics skills. So one of those things is Rosalind workshops, where they kind of work together to solve bioinformatics problems in a club format, usually taking place in our own building, which is great. our bioinformatics student Discord. So this is essentially, if you're not familiar with Discord, it's like a big long chat. I like to give students the little disclosure that the bioinformatics student Discord actually has faculty and staff. It's completely student run, but they have requested that we be a part of that group, not only to answer questions and provide context, but to actually just build community. We really like our faculty, we really like our students, and so we do enjoy solving problems together and thinking about ideas together and working on projects together and just hanging out and have conversations. So if you're interested, join the Discord, introduce yourself, ask questions, get involved. And then for students that are kind of later on in their career at VCU, or even when they're alumni, our bioinformatics LinkedIn group, BNFO, that's our shorthand for bioinformatics. Our LinkedIn group is fairly active and is a great way to learn about job opportunities that are present within the bioinformatics community, see what your fellow students and peers are doing with their degree, even after they leave, and also have conversations around what you might be interested in terms of a career in bioinformatics. So check out all these things, and if you have any questions, you can always let me know, and I'm happy to talk about how you could engage with these or how they might help you in your journey. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am here to help all of you from your first day at VCU up until you graduate and even beyond that, because I do meet with a lot of our alumni still as well. And it is a collaboration between you and I to make sure that those things happen. A big misconception with students is that your academic advisor is here to make sure you graduate. And really, that is not the case. It is your job and your role to make sure you graduate. I am here to help you do it in the most efficient and helpful way possible. And I think that, going in with that expectation too of your college degree of, hey, this is really up to me to make this happen and to make sure that this plan makes sense for me, will give you a little bit more autonomy and ownership over what you're doing here at VCU. Again, I am absolutely your resource. I'm here to build plans out, but make sure you know those important dates. How late can you add classes? How late can you drop classes? When can you withdraw from classes? How do you submit an academic appeal? I've included a QR code here so you could learn more about it. But really, this is something that we're always going to have a conversation about, and I will always remind you guys, hey, the withdraw deadline's coming up, the add deadline's coming up, all those things through email. And at the end of the day, make sure you're aware of these things too, because they are very important. And then here are just some other helpful campus resources. There are a lot of things that we hear from students once they leave VCU that they say, oh, I really wish I would have taken, more advantage of some of the things that were offered. The number one that we typically hear about is VCU Career Services, which you can start using your very first day here, even as a freshman, to get your resume built or redone, talk about personal statements, talk about career options that you might be interested in, talk about internships, talk about, how to negotiate offers, all those things. That's one that we see students, they're like, I wish I would have gone more when I was a student. VCU Counseling Services, this is one that, I think is really an underutilized service at VCU, and I would recommend any student that's considering counseling or has a concern maybe about mental health to look into that a little bit more and see what the process is like. For those who maybe just need a little bit of support around their wellness, we've got the WELL, or the Wellness Resource Center, here at VCU. Campus Learning Center, and with that, the Writing Center also are huge academic supports. And especially in bioinformatics, we have a lot of students that utilize this office for classes like organic chemistry or intro to programming, things like that. And we also have a lot of students that serve as tutors for the office. They work as tutors for the office. So that's also a paid position at VCU for those who are interested. And then some of the others too are also important, and the sites are there in case you want to look. So lastly, I will close out with this. The biggest key to being a successful bioinformatics student is have fun and flex your scientific curiosity. The students that we see that really thrive in our department are having fun while they're getting their education, and they really are asking questions. It can be intimidating in class to raise your hand and ask a question that maybe you think could be perceived as stupid or dumb or something like that, but I would really challenge you, if you start to feel like you have those thoughts, to really push yourself to ask questions in an environment where you feel like those around you may be, smarter or may have more experience or something, and push yourself out of your comfort zone to ask some of those questions that scare you. Because that's typically where we see the magic happen, of a student really kind of hitting a breakthrough with bioinformatics. A lot of our classes are built to make you a better scientist. And some of that can be a little bit uncomfortable because you're being pushed outside of maybe how you've learned in the past. So, always remember, your professors and me are here to support you, and we want to see you be a successful researcher, scientist, whatever you end up being with your bioinformatics degree. And so if you keep that in mind, you have fun, and you try to be, intensely curious in your scientific pursuits, then I think this will be a really good fit. As always, I'm super excited to have more students join our major, and always, happy to answer questions or talk with anybody about questions that you might have. First year students, stay tuned for that August 1st outreach from your first year advisor. Transfer students, you can make an appointment with me during the summer. I have hours all the way through the summer. We're open for appointments even when the university is not hosting classes or when you're not in classes, and that includes winter break. So I look forward to meeting you all, hopefully in person more in the fall. And in the meantime, do some research, get familiar with these sites, and I'll see you soon.